Okay, so we're back with part two. This is going to be less of a firewalls and more just of an overall networking demonstration. I'm able to actually download Cisco Packet Tracer because I'm a certified instructor or something, so I have this cool tool. I think it's very useful. I don't know why Embrittle won't use it to teach. I've told them to use it several times. But as you can see, we have a little router here. Also, just before I start this video, I want to say if you watched the last video, which I recommend because that's actually on firewalls and that's like the most important part. But here's like a topological thing. You know, you can see like I can put a PC here, we can like a server here, right? And so let's see, we have a router, and then let's get a switch going. So we have um, little network here, little LAN. We have our cloud. Cool, perfect. And then we're just going to do this. I think this is automatic. Yeah, so we're going to do pop, 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 pop. And basically, you don't need to know too much about this, but essentially, there's a thing called crossover, and what that means is that the wire um, needs to switch over or not, depending. So right now these are all straight cables, and the reason I know that is because you're going from PC to switch, switch to router, router to cloud. And so they're all different layer devices, so they don't need a crossover. But if you're connecting a router to a router or a switch to a switch, then you're going to need a crossover cable. It looks a bit different. It looks like that. You can see uh, if you're looking at my mouse, it's a dotted line instead of a straight line. So that's how they identify it in Cisco Packet Tracer. They'll identify it differently on different network topologies depending on what tool you're using or where you're working, or even if you're just drawing, right? And so these red dots are saying it doesn't work, by the way. I'm not sure if that's not because it's not on or it's just not configured or what the deal is, but I'm going to go through a lab, so I'm not just going to do this randomly. This is just a sample network, and hopefully they go through everything. But if not, that's okay. So they want to start with the router. That's a pretty common thing. Otherwise, you can't go to the internet, you know. And your PCs are usually default setup. Servers, of course, need some work, but in Cisco Packet Tracer is nothing because a server is really just a computer running an app. Is that right? So this is only topologically where it looks different. You know, in real life, it doesn't look too different, unless you have like a dedicated server rack, of course. So there's a lot of scenarios where like topologically this works, but in reality it looks a lot different because the devices, you know, don't necessarily need to look like this. And sometimes the routers and switches are combined into some devices. So, you know. But okay, we're starting with the router. So we have two ways of editing things. One is through the physical. As you can see, you know, we're looking at the devices, not too much. There's not even an on and off switch on the router, I think, that I can turn it off or on. From what I can see, you know, I can zoom in and you can see this thing, but doesn't see it. I don't see a on or off button anywhere. Oh, here it is. I turn it off. I can't unplug it though. Alright, so if we original size and just look at all these other things, I don't even know what this means, you know, I never look at it. So we can go to config. It's booting up because I turn it off and turn it back on, so now I have to wait until it reboots because it's a simulation. Cool, so it's rebooted. Alright, so Um, what do we have under config? Well, under config we can edit the display name, the actual name, and then we can actually edit quite a few different things here. But you're not always going to have access to a nice interface like this. So what they did in Cyber Patriot, and I'm sure what they'll do in other competitions if they ever use this, or even just in real life scenarios. You know, I've never worked in networking, so I couldn't tell you, but I'm sure that's how it could be. You know, you're going to configure all of these things, but you're going to be configuring them through the CLI, the command line interface. So uh, it's really cool, and this is just different. Like if you had an Ethernet port plug and you plugged it into the router, you know, these are physical ports on the device. So you can configure individual ports and their speeds or what have you, you know. So, and every time I click on something over there, by the way, it puts it into the CLI. So it's just showing you that, like, you know, if I click on interface, um, on that interface and I don't click exit, then I'm actually still interacting with this. Hopefully I can just get back, but if not, it's okay. I can just do exit. Then that's just because I know how to do that, right? So the first things you're actually going to do when you get into this menu is you're going to type in enable. That will get you into this little menu here. You can see that greater than sign turned into a pound symbol, and that indicates that you're now actually in, I think, like editing mode or something. I'm not really sure. So at any moment you can just type in question mark and list all the commands, which is wonderful. You can be mid command and put the question mark in. It will keep your command and it'll show you what the rest of the command is. And you don't even need to type in the rest of the command too if there's only one option, if you know. So show, for example, you can type in show. Oh, show question mark. Uh, you know what? We're gonna instead find a different command to type in because I don't like that. So we're gonna do so we did enable. Let's see what else there is. Um, it wanted me to configure. That, you know what? That's why, because the command is configure, right? And you want to do configure terminal. So the full command, right, if I do it, is configure terminal. But that's too long. And thankfully Cisco knows it's too long. So you can actually type in conf t and that'll do the exact same thing because those are the only commands with that letter, you know, so the letter combination, I suppose. Um, so now I'm in the same place where if I typed in configure terminal. So now that we're in conf t, we can actually start editing things. We're configuring things. So we're going to change the name of this router to R1. And we do that by typing hostname R1. And now you can see that instead of saying router config, it says R1 config. And that helps because if you have several routers, you don't want them all to be router. You want them to actually have names so you can identify them when you're when you have the terminal up, when you have the terminal down. You can see that the name here still says router 0. So hopefully we can change that, but I don't actually see how. So let's see what we do. Config. I wonder if I can do it through this somehow. I'm not actually sure. Well, I'm not sure. Usually what they'll have in a lab is they'll have the physical device that's already named for you and they want you to change the host name. So host name is the command you need to know. I'm not sure how to change the actual name on the chart, on the topology, because I created this. Um, anyways, so then if you're going to enable a password, right, you're going to enable it wants us to enable password Cisco. So now what that does is when you type in enable, right, in, uh, in exit, no, stop it. No, no, why? And this is the worst part. If you ever type in any command with a typo, it's gonna search this domain server for this command for like 30 seconds, I swear to God, and like it's a pain. So you can shorten commands, but you can't typo commands because then you're just waiting, and it's like you saw my reaction there. It's dramatic because who wants to wait this long? But while this is waiting, I'll tell you the difference between enable password and enable secret. Well, essentially, secret, I think, stores the password as a hash. So you're basically always going to be using enable secret instead of enable password. But functionally, they do the same thing. One is just a bit more secure. It's just good to know that they both exist because sometimes, you know, they'll might have you do one, but you should always be doing both. Unless, I'm not really sure. Maybe there are some scenarios that I'm not familiar with, but I'm not, yeah, if I'm not familiar with it, I couldn't tell you. So now if we type in enable, we're going to need a password, right? So the password I put in was Cisco. Um, and I want to get back to conf t, and I want to do enable secret Cisco. And it's not recommended because it's the same as your enable password. So that's unfortunate because that's what my lab is literally telling me to do here. So I don't know um, what exactly I'm supposed to do, but that's okay. I guess I could do enable secret Cisco 1. Why not? And then let's see. This task is saying to do line, but I'm not really sure what line is, so I'm gonna look it up and see if I need to go through it with you guys or not. Line, configure a terminal line, and then it says password lab login. So I guess now there's a password to this is interesting. I'm not really entirely familiar with this, but we're gonna do it anyways, just for my sake and for your guys' sake too, but mostly for my sake because I don't know what it is. And what I'm assuming is that we are making a password for this line, but I don't know what that means. So that's interesting. Um, Login. Nothing happened. I couldn't tell you what it means. But now we're going to exit here, right? Get this. And we're going to do it in another place too. And I couldn't tell you what that does. But I'm doing it just for the sake of the lab. So that was the first lab. That was just going over the very, very basic passwords. And I just enabled, of course, which wasn't even part of the lab, but it should be in my opinion because that's how you like get into the freaking terminal interface, like whatever. All right, next lab we're looking at. It wants us to click on PC2, which I don't have a PC2, and it's supposed to go directly to the router, which is unfortunate because I connected it to the switch. Um, but I just want to see what else is going on here in this lab that I can apply maybe to my screen. So it looks like we have a router configuration on interface F fast Ethernet. How do I abbreviate it? Interface and then question mark. And then I can do F A for fast Ethernet, as you can see right here. And maybe F would work honestly by itself, but I'm just going to do FA for the sake of it. And then I'm not sure if I need a space to do 0, 0, which, yeah, I'm not sure if that works fast 0, 1. All right, let's look at what devices we have. Okay, we have gigabit Ethernet. So if I click on that, interestingly enough, I think I just have a weird router here. I honestly would go as far to say that like the routers are different enough that like if I take a 2811 router, look at this one. Um, like look at all the what the hell is all this stuff? I have no idea. And here's the fast Ethernet exactly. So for some reason, this one has a fast Ethernet, and this one has 2 ports, and this one has gigabit Ethernet and has 3 ports. So I couldn't tell you. Either way, it's going to be a very similar command interface, gigabit Ethernet, and I didn't type that. I clicked on the thing, obviously. So if I do if, wait, if question mark, no. Okay, interface int g I 0 0 0. Oh, there we go. See how that's how you use your keyboard shortcuts or whatever. So just not typing out the entire word because you're gambling that that works. Um, so once we're in the interface, you're going to set the IP address to the default gateway, it looks like. I'm not sure why. So that'd be your default gateway. It's the .1 address. And then it looks like they're putting a mask on it as well. And I'm not really sure what that does. And then no shutdown. And what no shutdown does is it means that it's saving, basically. You're saying you're telling it not to turn off, which is like cool. But as you can see now, the line protocol is up. So that's confirming that we did worked. And it doesn't look like there's anything more interesting to this one. Oh, it looks like they're setting the banner. So you can do banner MOTD, and then you can do like, is that D? That's an H. Banner MOTD, and you can be like, get out of my router. I'll get out of my router, you mafka. You know? And then you just like, that's, okay, end with the character G. Alright, so I think I might need to give it some, you know, asparagus, or whatever those are called. Asparagus? What the hell is this called? Asterisk? No. Apostrophes. There we go. Apostrophes. So, now, if I exit, it's like, where'd my G go? Now it just says add out of my router, Imafka, whatever. Well, it's close enough, you know, but there's supposed to be a G there. And message of the days are wonderful. You can do it on your computer, you can do them anywhere. So I love it. And it's asking for my password. That's a good thing. I'm not actually sure where the passwords are stored in this at all, so I've never really investigated that. Um, that's the last interesting thing I see in this lab. Okay. Um, it looks like Cisco 1. Cisco 1. Okay, what about Cisco Lab? What the hell did I make the password? Alright, well, that's what I get for following labs, I suppose. But, I think that's all for routers. There's definitely more. There's going to be um, a lot more, actually. I'm going over the very, very basics because we haven't even gone over duplex, like half duplex or full duplex. We haven't gone over the port security. We haven't gone over static default route, RIP configuration, router on a stick, spanning tree protocol, NAT, dynamic NAT, static NAT, serial connection, and a few other things. But I think that's a good introduction to Cisco Packet Tracer. If I was going to show you one other thing, it's probably VLANs. So you need to do VLANs on switches, but essentially what you can do is you have this switch. You can designate a few ports on that switch to be its own virtual little network. So you can have a little, like a few different PCs over here on its own little VLAN, you know, and you can have your server over here on its own VLAN, but they're both connected to the same switch. That's what's really powerful about switches and networking is you don't need physical devices, right? Because um, software networking is so strong now. I'm not sure what the term is. Is it software defined networking? I'm not sure. It's something like that, you know. So we're gonna look at switches, and of course the same thing, enable and conf t probably. And now you can actually edit things. And so I just want to go over basic switch configuration, and it wants us to go into interface VLAN 1. Um, and you see how it says IF here? I'm so suspicious because that's supposed to mean interface, right? So I feel like IF VLAN 1 should work, but doesn't, like, I'm not sure why. And of course tab always works, so tab is wonderful. So now we're in interface, we're configuring the interface. If you can read the syntax of the switch, you know, it's pretty easy. We are going to set the IP address to 192.168.4.2 with a mask of 255.255.255.0, and I forgot a space. And then we're setting the IP default gateway, which is the router. We're setting that to 192.168.4.1. And what's interesting is I'm not entirely sure why, but I think what this is saying is that the network here is going to be 192.168.1.1. That's this router. And anything on this network, which is only this switch, is going to be 192.168.1.2. Is the only device on here. But this device is starting its IP range at 4.1. And that is identifying this router as 4.1 because we're this command right here, IP default gateway, is assigning this router 4.1. And what that does is it means every other device on this network, and this is 4.0 because it's the actual switch, then this 4.2 and this 4.3, for example, are both going to use 4.1 as their default gateway. But this router doesn't actually ever see these two, aside from otherwise it going, through this switch. So it's all layered. And that's when we talk about layers, of course, this is one layer of the network, this is the second layer, this is the third layer, etc., etc. So let's enter that command. It works. Cool. Write is the same thing as save. Uh, well, it's supposed to be this. Oh, okay. I have to exit and then I have to write. Yeah. So write is what save is, and then you type in no shutdown. But maybe that's only a router thing. Yeah. So no shutdown is only a router thing. And then it wants us to type in. So I'm going to go back into conft and it wants us to type in no IP domain lookup. No IP domain lookup. And I don't know what that is, but hopefully what it is that when I type in something, it doesn't spend forever looking up the typo, and that might exactly be what it is. So, yeah, because it's just saying that it's wrong now instead of looking forever, which is good. But I'm not sure if I did that or not. Logging synchronous, I don't know what that does. Let's see, logging. Synchronized message output, I'm not sure. And what is logging? Modify message logging facility. Yes, I don't really know. But basically, that's all networking is. You're following a bunch of instructions to set up routers and switches. You don't always know what's going on. Sometimes you get the gist of it, sometimes you don't. There's some things that are very important. There's some things you just need to get running so that they're running, and you just want some of these, sometimes you just want these arrows to be green so you have internet access, and that's all that's really your concern, right? Because you're getting all these different calls and people are like, help me, my internet's not working. And you're like, cool. Um, So that's networking. I hope you guys have enjoyed your lesson, and I hope you guys learned something from this Cisco packet tracer. I hope, and if there's anything else you guys want me to teach you, for sure ask. Uh, I wish I could go delve deeper into IP tables, but again, that's just not my forte. But I've heard a lot of wonderful things about it, so I do recommend checking it out if you have the opportunity. All right, well, thank you again for watching this video, and keep learning, guys. This is a fun field.